You settle into the dark as if entering a quiet observatory inside your own mind. And for a gentle moment you let your breath fall into a slow and steady rhythm. That feels like starlight stretching softly across a silent horizon. You lie there quietly, noticing how your body eases with every breath, as those small shutters open within you, widening your inner view. With each exhale, the world around you drifts a little farther away, leaving only the faint hum of night, patient and reassuring. A quiet companion guiding you into deeper stillness. You imagine the night sky as a silent stage scattered with points of burning light, each one older than any story Earth has ever carried. You picture astronomers watching these lights, with instruments designed to stretch human senses outward, measuring brightness so delicate that even the smallest decrease can reveal an entire world. You rest with the idea that somewhere across the wide darkness, a planet is crossing the face of its star, and that tiny dimming, almost too small to see, is enough to whisper its presence across the void. You let yourself feel the rhythm of orbits, the slow sweep of worlds moving around suns with a steadiness that resembles breathing. In your mind, their paths become soft trails of light looping patiently without rush or urgency. The transit method begins to feel less like a scientific technique and more like a celestial heartbeat. The star brightens, the world crosses, the brightness dips, and then rises again. It is a cycle you already know, a pattern that mirrors your own inhale and exhale, a quiet pulse that joins your body with the distant sky. You begin to sense how alive starlight feels as it travels through the dark, carrying whispers of the places it has touched. When that light passes through the faint outline of a distant planet, it changes in ways so gentle they seem like delicate folds in fabric. You imagine these changes arriving at telescopes on Earth like thin messages written across time, drifting into waiting instruments in the cold night. You picture scientists reading these signals with the same care someone might use to open a fragile letter from faraway as your breath deepens. Your awareness expands outward as if carried by the light itself. You imagine standing beneath a wide dome where the darkness feels supportive rather than empty, a soft cloth holding you in place. In this dome, stars do not flicker but glow with steady patience, their light unfolding leaf by leaf. You begin to realize that each small dimming is not merely a measurement, but a movement, a sign of presence and possibility. Hidden worlds begin to feel less like distant mysteries and more like quiet neighbors. Just beyond sight, your thoughts drift gently back to Earth, the small world holding you now. Long before instruments or equations existed, people looked toward the sky and felt that it held stories. Tonight you become part of that long tradition, not by searching with urgency, but by wondering with softness. You rest in the idea that curiosity can be as calm as breathing, a slow and steady reaching towards something just beyond the horizon of knowing. You feel yourself joining the centuries of dreamers who once traced patterns in starlight, letting imagination fill the spaces between. You take another slow breath, sensing how your chest rises like a small moon lifting from shadow. You imagine your breath as a kind of telescope widening your inner sky each time you draw it in. Through this quiet telescope, the stars feel a little nearer, their distances softened. You begin to understand how astronomers rely not only on technology, but on patience, letting time reveal what it will in its own way. A distant world may take hours, days, or years to show its shadow, and yet they wait, believing in what small signals can become. The night thickens softly around you, and you imagine photons traveling across unimaginable distances to reach your mind. These tiny travelers move across centuries without complaint, carrying the story of where they have been. You welcome them the way you might welcome a calm visitor, letting their quiet presence settle into you. Each photon becomes a clue, a small offering from a distant sun, whispering that there is something waiting to be noticed. Your thoughts slow even further, stretching out like long comm waves. You explore the idea that listening to distant suns is not done with ears, but with stillness. Astronomers sit in quiet rooms, watching gentle curves of brightness shift on dark screens. Each dip a possible world. You feel the beauty in discovering something enormous through something so subtle. It reminds you that the universe often reveals itself not through dramatic moments, but through small, steady signs. Your body feels heavier now, sinking into its resting place as though gravity itself is comforting you. You imagine gravity not as a force pulling you downward, but as a gentle hand keeping you grounded, while your thoughts travel outward. In this balance between drifting and resting, something loosens inside you, as if the border between your inner landscape and the cosmos has grown thin. You sense that you are not simply observing distant stars, you are listening to them. You imagine the moment when a new world is finally confirmed. Not a loud celebration, but a quiet recognition, a soft dip in a line, a subtle curve in a graph, a whisper saying, "I am here." You share in that calm joy, feeling it settle through you like warm light. A distant planet continues its orbit, following its ancient path, unaware of the eyes that noticed it. The darkness around you feels companionable now, not empty but full of quiet presence. You sense that the sky listens as much as it speaks, responding to your attention with its own steady rhythm. You let yourself rest in that understanding, knowing that you do not need to grasp everything at once. Instead, you simply breathe and listen. You feel the question forming softly, without urgency, as though it rises from the darkness itself. What might those worlds be made of, you wonder, and how might their skies breathe beneath unfamiliar suns? You imagine thin veils of vapor, quiet winds moving across untouched ground, colors shaped by molecules you have never seen. And as this thought settles into you, it begins to open a path toward the next step of your journey, a path that leads into the gentle art of reading the breath of distant planets. In this unfolding curiosity, you feel yourself drifting toward the subtle language of atmospheres waiting to be understood. You drift deeper into the rhythm of orbits, passing in front of the stars, as the night settles more fully around you, softening your thoughts into long, gentle waves of attention that move slowly across the sky. You imagine yourself leaning inward toward the darkness as though it holds a quiet language. You are just beginning to understand. A language spoken not in sound, but in the faint shifts of brightness that mark the presence of something hidden. You picture a star shining steadily, its light carrying across unimaginable distances, unbroken for ages until a small wandering world drifts between you and its glow. creating the softest shadow. A whisper of dimming so slight it seems almost impossible to notice. You follow the transit method with your mind as if you are tracing a finger along a calm shoreline, where the tide moves in slow, deliberate breaths. When the planet crosses its star, the light curves downward in a subtle dip, like a tiny wave folding in on itself. You sense how astronomers watch that dimming with patient care, measuring how deep it falls and how long it lasts. From those gentle details they can learn the size of the world, its distance from its star, and even the speed with which it circles. You imagine their quiet focus, their eyes resting on the steady line of light, waiting for the moment when it bows just slightly, revealing the presence of a traveler no one can see. You let your thoughts drift into this world of delicate measurements. You imagine a star far away, shining with unwavering brightness for centuries, until something passes across it so quietly that only careful eyes notice. That small interruption becomes a moment of revelation, a reminder that the universe is full of hidden travelers moving in faithful loops. You imagine these planets as silhouettes moving like dancers across a golden stage, their movements graceful and unhurried. Each transit becomes a soft step in an ongoing pattern, a rhythm repeating over long stretches of time, offering its story one dimming at a time. As you breathe slowly, you begin to sense the geometry of these cosmic motions. You picture a planet's orbit as a circle drawn in soft chalk around a star, its path smooth and predictable. When the orbit aligns just right with Earth's viewpoint, the planet reveals itself through its shadow. You notice how alignment becomes a quiet form of fate in astronomy, a moment when the universe turns its face toward you. If the orbit sits at even a slight angle, the planet remains invisible, passing above or below the star without leaving a trace. You rest in the thought that even in the vastness of space, discovery often happens through perfect moments of perspective, moments that feel almost miraculous in their timing. You continue drifting deeper into the idea that shadows can speak. A planet's shadow tells you its size by how much darkness it casts on the starlight. A larger world creates a deeper dip, a more noticeable curve. A smaller one whispers instead, leaving only a faint indentation barely seen. Yet even the softest whisper matters. You imagine these small dips appearing on a long chart of starlight as gentle pulses, quiet variations that resemble heartbeats across time. As you settle more fully into this thought, the night grows even softer around you, as though the universe senses your attention and responds with a calm of its own. Your mind moves slowly now, adapting to the pace of celestial cycles. You reflect on how the timing of transits reveals the length of a planet's year. If the shadow returns regularly, astronomers know the world continues its orbit with steady devotion. You picture that repetition like a lantern swinging gently in predictable arcs. The interval between dips becomes a measure of trust, a reminder that in a universe full of change, some motions are comfortingly constant. You imagine the night widening as you learn these things, opening gently like a door into thousands of unseen places. You sense that every star overhead might hold its own collection of orbiting worlds, each one patiently circling and occasionally revealing itself in faint patterns of shadow and light. The possibilities expand around you like a vast nest of hidden stories waiting for attention. You feel small, but not in a way that troubles you. Instead, you feel folded into something larger, something that accepts you quietly as part of its unfolding. Another breath rises and falls within you, and you picture astronomers comparing shadows from different stars, learning which worlds are rocky, which are large, which are hot, and which drift in cooler orbits. You imagine how these details accumulate, turning faint signals into evidence, evidence into knowledge, and knowledge into quiet wonder. You rest in the idea that understanding does not always require clarity. Sometimes it only requires patience and the willingness to sit with faint signs until they reveal what they hold. You feel yourself drifting further toward the edges of this quiet science. You imagine yourself holding a long sheet of starlight, watching it gently dip as a shadow crosses. You feel the calm pleasure of noticing something subtle, something that asks you to slow down enough to see it. You let the rhythm of transits guide your thoughts towards stillness, as though each crossing encourages you to soften a little more. The night feels vast around you now, filled not with emptiness, but with possibility. You imagine the shadows of distant worlds passing steadily before distant suns, each one carrying a story of size, distance, and movement. These shadows do not shout. They do not demand. They simply drift across the light, offering themselves to whoever is patient enough to notice. And as you lie here listening to this quiet cosmic rhythm, a question begins to rise within you, gentle as a tide. If shadows can reveal so much, what else might the light be waiting to share? What else might these faint variations carry, you wonder? And what deeper truths might be hidden in the way a shadow bends light as it passes? You imagine astronomers studying not only the depth of a dip, but its shape, learning how a world tilts and moves with subtle grace. You picture the silhouette brushing the edge of the star, revealing hints of an atmosphere or the soft suggestion of drifting clouds. The thought soothes you, settling into your mind like a warm breeze moving through an open space. You let your thoughts wander further into the quiet terrain of possibility. You imagine a small rocky world with gentle valleys crossing its star with calm regularity. You imagine a larger world too, its shadow deeper and its presence clear even across immense distances. Each crossing carries a secret, and each secret becomes part of your growing understanding, settling inside you like fine dust gathering on an untouched windowsill. As you sink deeper into this calm, a question begins to rise like a soft glow at the edge of your awareness. If shadows alone can reveal so much about worlds hidden from sight, then perhaps the light that passes around them holds its own quiet stories, waiting for the moment when you are ready to listen in the gentle dark. You rest in the quiet cradle of night and let your breathing drift into a slow and steady rhythm, as if you are preparing to listen to something delicate, something faint, something carried across impossible distances. You imagine a distant star sending its light outward in all directions, a soft and constant glow that has traveled for ages to reach you. And somewhere between you and that star, a small planet passes gently across its face, letting a thin halo of its atmosphere filter the starlight like a veil held in a tranquil wind. In that moment, the atmosphere becomes a lens, a soft, distorting glass that leaves whisper-like fingerprints in the light it touches. You picture that altered glow reaching Earth, long after the transit has ended, carrying within it clues about the air that shaped it. You let this image settle in your mind like a warm mist. You see how every atmosphere becomes a quiet storyteller shaping the light that moves through it. The air on that distant world absorbs some colors and lets others pass through, leaving a subtle signature behind a whisper in the spectrum that astronomers learn to read with patient eyes. This technique, called transit spectroscopy, becomes a kind of soft language, one spoken only during the brief moments when a planet lines up just right. You imagine the instruments waiting in silence, marking each fleeting dimming of the star, each faint shift in color, each tiny breath of information that tells researchers what the planet's air is made of. You drift a little deeper into this idea. You feel how a world breathes not with lungs, but with chemistry, with the balance of molecules that rise from oceans, deserts, mountains, and perhaps even living creatures. When astronomers search those colored ribbons for water vapor, methane, or oxygen, they are searching for the quiet signs of habitability, the gentle indicators that a world knows how to hold warmth, how to protect itself, how to keep possibility alive. You picture water vapor imprinting its delicate pattern on the starlight, like a watercolor stroke across a canvas, and oxygen leaving its crisp signature, like the edge of a leaf held up to the sun. Even the absence of certain gases speaks with soft precision, telling observers what kind of processes shape that distant air. As you breathe slowly, you sense a connection between your own inhale and the imagined inhalation of a distant world. On Earth, your breath is shaped by countless generations of life releasing oxygen into the air, long before you existed. Every inhale you take carries the memory of forests, ancient oceans, and tiny organisms that once transformed sunlight into the air you rely on. In the same way, astronomers search distant atmospheres for hints that something similar might be unfolding far away, not because they expect to find Earth's twin in every direction, but because each world offers its own version of balance, its own rhythm of gases, stirred by geology, weather, and perhaps living things moving quietly beneath strange skies. You picture a hot Jupiter with clouds made of molten minerals, its atmosphere thick and turbulent, shimmering with reflections like polished stone. You imagine a super-Earth wrapped in dense carbon dioxide, where light filters through like amber. You see worlds where storms rage for centuries, and worlds where calm skies stretch endlessly in thin blue layers. Each atmosphere becomes a breath held in time, telling you about temperature, pressure, chemistry, and the unique dance between a planet and its star. You let these visions drift around you like passing currents of warm and cool air, each one shaped by conditions you may never witness yet can almost feel through the gentle logic of the science. Now, you imagine how astronomers gather this fragile information. They use telescopes that rest high above Earth's atmosphere, where the air is too thin to disturb the colors. Instruments split the starlight into long, graceful bands, dark lines, appearing like threads removed from a tapestry. Each line corresponds to a specific gas, absorbing a specific wavelength. You picture the scientists leaning closer, not in urgency, but in reverence, treating every observation like a small gift from across the cosmos. The signals may be faint, but they are consistent, and with time the picture of the atmosphere becomes clearer, more textured, more alive. You return to the idea that atmospheres are not just layers of gas. They are protectors. They hold warmth, shield surfaces, and create environments where something can grow, or move, or simply persist. You imagine that on some distant world a thick atmosphere softens the stars' harsh light, turning days into glowing amber hours and nights into gentle blue twilights. You think about how atmospheres can trap heat through greenhouse gases, forming blankets that keep oceans from freezing, or how thin atmospheres let warmth escape quickly, creating worlds where day and night differ by hundreds of degrees. Each variation shapes the nature of the world itself, determining whether its surface is calm or chaotic, hospitable or unyielding. Your mind drifts toward the possibility of life. The search is always careful, never assuming too much, but always listening. Life alters an atmosphere in ways that geology alone rarely does. On Earth, the presence of oxygen, methane, and water together forms a kind of chemical harmony, a balance that hints at biological activity. Astronomers look for similar harmonies, not expecting clear answers, but hoping for patterns that suggest something more than rock and air. You imagine that first moment when a strange combination of gases appears in the data, a combination that cannot be explained by storms or volcanoes alone. The feeling is not dramatic. It is gentle, steady, and filled with wonder, the quiet recognition that something remarkable may be waiting beyond the next observation. You let the feeling of discovery unfold slowly. You imagine being an astronomer at the moment a new atmosphere is detected. The excitement is not loud. It is gentle, like a candle being lit in a dark room. You picture the years of analysis that follow the careful checking of data, the long nights spent comparing models and possibilities. The work feels meditative, a partnership between human patience and the steady rhythm of the universe. You sense how each confirmed atmosphere becomes an invitation to dream further, to imagine what lies beneath those swirling clouds and shifting winds. As your own breathing remains calm, you picture how starlight and atmosphere interact, like two old friends meeting briefly in the vastness of space. Light travels for ages only to spend a fraction of a second passing through a thin veil of gas before continuing onward. Yet in that moment it absorbs the memory of the world it touched, carrying encoded whispers across the cosmos. When that light finally reaches a telescope orbiting Earth, those whispers are unraveled like threads from a distant story. You feel the beauty of this process in your body. The cosmos speaks softly, and you learn to listen softly in return. Reading atmospheres becomes not just a scientific act, but a practice of attention, of patience, of being present with signals that arrive slowly and reveal themselves gradually. You let that slowness guide you, now allowing each image to fade gently before the next begins to form. As you rest in this calm awareness, you begin to sense how atmospheres hint at something beyond chemistry, something about the character of a world. Some are harsh, some gentle, some chaotic, some steady. And you wonder what kind of story each world would tell if you could stand beneath its sky, feel its winds, taste its air. This curiosity settles softly around you, like a cloak inviting you to follow it into the next thought, the next horizon, the next quiet question waiting in the dark. You breathe once more, and let your mind drift toward the unknown, imagining how each atmosphere you have explored tonight is only the beginning of a larger journey, a journey that will carry you from these gentle breaths of distant worlds into deeper places where new clues wait quietly beneath the starlight in the dark. You settle more deeply into the quiet of your own breath, letting the slow rise and fall of your chest become a small reminder of balance. In this quiet moment, you imagine the universe arranging its own balance too, shaping pockets of gentle warmth where life might someday find a home. These pockets form a ring around each star, a ring astronomers call the habitable zone. You picture it not as a strict boundary, but as a soft band of possibility, a region where temperatures can settle into a welcoming middle ground, neither burning away hope nor freezing it into silence. As you rest, you drift into that subtle band, sensing the gentle comfort it offers. You think about how distance becomes a kind of tenderness in space. Too close to a star, and everything becomes harsh, light beating down with relentless energy, water evaporating before it has a chance to gather. Too far, and everything becomes brittle, warmth leaking away until even the simplest molecules struggle to move. But somewhere in between, there is a region where warmth lingers just long enough, where energy arrives in a steady, life-friendly glow. You imagine yourself floating inside that middle place, wrapped in a temperature that feels like a soft blanket, neither too warm nor too cold. Perfectly patient, your mind drifts to Earth, your home, your silent companion through the long journey of existence. Earth sits in its star's Goldilocks zone with a kind of effortless grace, as if placed there by the quiet hand of chance. Here, light becomes comfort rather than threat. Rain falls in cycles gentle enough for oceans to remain, yet strong enough to carve valleys and feed rivers. You sense how remarkable this balance is, how fragile and how precious. Every life you know rests on this delicate distance, this cosmic sweet spot where water can flow and air can cradle breath. You imagine the sun shining softly across millions of kilometers, its warmth arriving after an 8-minute journey. When that warmth reaches Earth, the planet holds it with tender moderation. Clouds reflect a portion back into space, and the oceans absorb another part, storing heat the way your body stores calm after a deep breath. Forests pull energy into their leaves, transforming sunlight into life. You feel the truth of it. Earth does not simply sit in a zone of warmth. It participates in warmth, shaping it, balancing it, offering it room to settle. Now your awareness shifts outward to worlds beyond your own. You picture distant stars with their own Goldilocks rings swirling gently around them. Some bands are wide and generous, shaped by cool red dwarfs that burn slowly for trillions of years. Others are narrow and delicate, formed around bright blue giants whose lives burn fast and fade quickly. You imagine planets drifting through those regions, each one receiving its own unique kind of light. Some may be rocky like Earth, others icy, gaseous, or covered in thick volcanic clouds. Yet all of them share a simple truth. Within the Goldilocks band, warmth becomes a gentle conversation between star and planet. You let that conversation unfold in your imagination. You picture a small planet circling a quiet red dwarf, feeling the warmth of its star like a soft ember rather than a blazing flame. The planet rotates slowly, holding one side always toward the light. On the bright side, permanent sunrise paints the landscape in warm tones. On the dark side, starlight never touches the ground. Yet thin winds carry whispers of warmth across the boundary. You sense how even such a strange world might hold the possibility of oceans, clouds, or even life curling in the protected shadows. Then you drift to a larger star, a hotter one whose habitable zone lies far from its surface. The planets here move swiftly, dancing around a star that pours energetic light into space like molten gold. You imagine standing on a rocky surface under a pale blue sky, feeling heat carried on a gentle breeze. Even here, odd and distant, the conditions might be just right for water to settle into oceans, for winds to shape dunes, for valleys to carve themselves over soft edges. Warmth becomes a sculptor, patient and enduring. You breathe slowly and think of how warmth shapes everything you know. On Earth, warmth is not constant, yet it stays within a livable range, held in place by atmospheric blankets and ocean currents. You imagine your own body in parallel, maintaining its temperature through subtle adjustments, balancing warmth and coolness without conscious effort. This parallel comforts you, linking your quiet biology with the vast physics of planetary climate. Both you and distant worlds survive by finding the middle path between extremes. Your thoughts move to the edges of habitable zones, the boundary regions where warmth becomes uncertain. Some planets linger there, walking a line between possibility and impossibility. On these worlds, water may freeze into deep glaciers, yet melt in seasonal cycles. Thin atmospheres may struggle to trap heat, but pockets of warmth might still gather in sheltered valleys or beneath icy crusts. You imagine explorers discovering hidden lakes, warmed by geothermal energy, cradling life that thrives in darkness. Even at the edge of comfort, nature can find ways to continue. You return again to the idea that warmth carries tenderness, not sentimental tenderness, but the quiet physical truth that life needs gentle conditions in order to unfold. Stability, moderation, soft gradients. You reflect on how rare that softness is. Across the galaxy, most worlds are too hot or too cold, too dry or too violent. Yet even a small chance becomes meaningful when multiplied across billions of stars. Each Goldilocks zone becomes a cradle waiting for something to settle inside it. You feel the comfort of this possibility expanding like a warm glow. You rest in this feeling, letting the idea deepen. The Goldilocks zone is not a guarantee. It is an invitation. A planet must still shape its air, hold onto water, and shield itself from storms and radiation. Yet without the right distance from its star, none of those efforts could begin. Distance becomes a first act of harmony, a foundation upon which every other condition depends. You breathe into the simplicity of that truth. Balance begins with where you stand. As your breath continues its calm rhythm, you begin to sense another layer of the story unfolding. Warmth is only part of the picture. Beneath the gentle temperatures of a promising world lies a surface waiting to be shaped: mountains, oceans, valleys, ice fields, deserts, and each of these landscapes will tell its own story about what a world can become. And as you drift at the edge of this thought, You feel the quiet pull of curiosity drawing you toward the next question. What kind of surfaces might be waiting beneath those distant skies? You settle into a quiet breath, letting the soft inhale and exhale feel like waves washing gently across the edges of your awareness. As the rhythm steadies, you imagine an ocean forming somewhere far from Earth, under a sky you have never seen. It begins the same way most things in the universe begin, with patience. Water gathers molecule by molecule, cooling from vapor into liquid, settling into shallow pools, then spreading into basins carved by long-forgotten geology. As you picture this slow unfurling, you feel yourself drifting into the idea that oceans can exist on countless worlds, each one shaped by a balance of temperature, atmosphere, and gravity. Your attention lingers on gravity first, because gravity is the quiet sculptor of all oceans. Too little gravity, and water drifts away, rising into the sky and escaping into space as easily as breath leaving your lungs. Too much gravity, and water is pressed so tightly that oceans become heavy and sluggish, locked beneath crushing atmospheres. But when gravity rests in a gentle middle range, oceans can spread into familiar patterns, waves curling, tides rising, currents flowing like slow, planetary thoughts. You imagine standing on a distant shore where the pole beneath your feet is neither too light nor too heavy, a place where water feels at home. Next, your mind drifts to pressure, that invisible cradle holding water in its liquid state. You think about how on Earth, ocean depth increases pressure until it becomes immense, yet still allows water to remain fluid and life to flourish. On distant planets, pressure plays an even quieter but more essential role. A thin atmosphere may allow surface oceans only in rare, sheltered pockets, while a denser one may create global seas wrapped in blankets of warm air. As you breathe in deeply, you imagine matching your inhale to the pressure of a distant ocean, feeling how each planet creates its own balance, its own ability to let water remain soft and flowing. Now your thoughts move to temperature, the final and perhaps most tender requirement for an alien sea. You imagine a world orbiting a small red dwarf, its sun dim but steady, casting a warm copper glow across a wide ocean. On this world, sunrise may last for hours, painting the water with slow gradients of red and gold. Temperatures remain mild, not because the star is powerful, but because it shines with long-lived calm. You picture shallow tides glimmering beneath that subdued light, each wave carrying traces of minerals and salts that might one day support life. The idea comforts you. Warmth does not have to be bright to be welcoming. Your imagination lifts you next to a world where oceans exist not on the surface, but beneath layers of ice. Many moons in our own solar system hide oceans below frozen shells, warmed by internal heat rather than sunlight. You think of Europa with its smooth, white crust, beneath which an ocean larger than all of Earth's combined water may swirl in darkness, or Enceladus, where geysers spray plumes of salty vapor into space, whispering the presence of deep seas below. You imagine lowering yourself through cracks in the ice, drifting into a silent underwater cathedral lit only by bioluminescent life that may or may not exist. In that imagined darkness, the water feels calm, steady, and timeless. Then you drift into the idea of super-Earths, planets larger than our own, where oceans may stretch from pole to pole in uninterrupted expanses. On these worlds, water could be many kilometers deep, forming layers of exotic ice near the bottom, compressed by gravity, but still warm enough above to host a global sea. You imagine floating in such an ocean, feeling the planet's size in the long, slow sway of currents. With no continents to break the surface, storms would travel endlessly, circling the globe like wandering thoughts. Yet you also sense a strange serenity, an entire world covered in gentle water, reflecting a sky that shifts in colors unfamiliar to your eyes. Your awareness softens as you consider how the color of an alien sky shapes the mood of its oceans. On Earth, water often reflects blue because our atmosphere scatters sunlight in that hue. But on worlds around red dwarfs, oceans may appear muted purple or deep maroon. Around bright white stars, they might shimmer silver or pale gold. You picture yourself resting near a shoreline where the sky glows lavender and the ocean reflects it like liquid dusk. The thought feels like a lullaby, reminding you that beauty bends easily to the physics of light and air. You let your mind wander now to chemistry, the minerals dissolved in distant oceans, the salts that give them flavor and weight. Every world carries its own geological story, and its oceans absorb those stories grain by grain. Some oceans may be rich in iron, giving them deep green tones. Others might hold sulfur or ammonia, forming seas that would be dangerous to you, but still gentle in their own quiet balance. You realize that gentle does not always mean comfortable. It means stable, patient, held within rules that a world can maintain. Your breath slows again as you picture the surface of an alien ocean at night. Stars reflect from the water in unfamiliar patterns. Constellations rearranged into maps no human culture has ever drawn. The waves lap softly, each one carrying a trace of heat from the planet's interior or from the distant star overhead. You imagine listening to these waves, hearing the slow language of tides shaped by moons you have never seen. This sound feels ancient and calming, as if oceans themselves know how to sing you into rest. Now you shift your thoughts toward the possibility of life. Not dramatic, complex life, but simple, quiet forms that might drift in alien seas, microbes feeding on minerals near hydrothermal vents, algae floating close to the surface, organisms adapting to chemistry you cannot name. You imagine these worlds breathing slowly through their oceans, exchanging gases with the air, shaping climate and temperature in delicate cycles. Life, if it exists, would be patient here, moving with the rhythm of currents and the pull of distant moons. You sense how oceans, wherever they exist, become engines of stability. They store heat, distribute nutrients, and moderate climates. Even on planets without continents, oceans can shape weather patterns, create winds, and regulate temperature in ways that make habitability possible. Their presence softens extremes, turning a harsh world into one that can cradle life or at least preserve potential. This thought settles warmly in your mind. Oceans are not just features of planets. They are caretakers. You feel yourself drifting deeper into stillness as you imagine oceans that never meet the sky yet. All vast subsurface seas sealed beneath thick ice, never stirred by wind, never touched by starlight. Yet even in such darkness, Warmth from a planet's core or tidal forces from neighboring moons can keep water fluid. These oceans may remain stable for billions of years, humming with energy in their deep isolation. You picture them as enormous sleeping worlds within worlds, carrying secrets that no light has ever touched. Your breath continues its slow rhythm as you reflect on how many oceans the universe may hold. Scientists estimate that water may be common, that planets and moons with liquid seas might outnumber dry ones. The thought feels expansive, comforting. You imagine the universe not as an empty void, but as a place filled with quiet waters, each one waiting for a moment of discovery, each one carrying a silent invitation to wonder. You rest in this feeling, letting the vision soften. Oceans across the galaxy vary wildly: warm, cold, shallow, deep, bright, dark, but all of them follow the same simple laws. They gather where gravity allows, where pressure protects, where temperature invites. They form patiently, they endure quietly, and they remind you that gentleness is a form of strength. You breathe into that strength, feeling it settle over you like calm tidewater. You begin this chapter with a gentle awareness that life, in all its quiet potential, is far more varied than the narrow examples you know from Earth. You breathe slowly, letting the idea of possibility stretch outward like the soft widening of dawn light. You imagine worlds that do not need blue oceans or green forests to awaken something living within them. You picture small chemical rhythms, patient and subtle, pulsing just beneath alien surfaces. You understand that astronomers search not for familiar shapes, but for patterns, that whisper of self-sustaining change. In this calm space, you let your mind drift, feeling how every world could hold a different version of aliveness. You sense that life is not a single story, but a broad landscape of gentle beginnings. In this widening awareness, you realize how every possibility becomes a quiet invitation to imagine forms of life beyond ordinary expectations. Softly, to understand these possibilities. You allow your thoughts to wander back to the simple building blocks that make life on Earth thrive. You picture molecules that meet like shy travelers at a crossroads, exchanging energy and purpose in tiny, invisible scenes. You imagine how such meetings might unfold differently on distant planets, shaped by temperatures, pressures, and chemistries unfamiliar to you. You breathe gently as you picture slow cycles of reaction and renewal. Cycles that do not rush, but simply exist in a quiet harmony. You sense that, in some places, life could arise not from water, but from liquid methane or other exotic solvents, each offering a different canvas for delicate chemical dance. As you rest in this thought, you understand that variety is not chaos, but a wide invitation to imagine life in its many potential forms, and you feel new possibilities unfolding softly before your quiet curiosity. You let your awareness drift into the idea that life may not look like anything you recognize. You imagine worlds lit by dim red suns, where organisms grow slowly in shadowed calm, drawing energy from faint, steady warmth. You picture planets wrapped in thick clouds where chemical gradients replace sunlight, offering another quiet source of nourishment. You breathe softly, letting these ideas settle like gentle sediments in your thoughts. You sense that each environment shapes its own expression of what it means to live. Instead of searching for familiar forms, you open yourself to subtler signs, patterns of heat, traces of gases, rhythmic changes that hint at internal motion. You understand that life, at its core, is about persistence, tiny systems resisting the pull towards stillness. In imagining these distant possibilities, you allow your mind to expand into a broader, calmer definition of aliveness that waits quietly in distant sunlight. Asterisk as you drift deeper into this calm exploration, you notice how life does not require beauty in the way you typically imagine it. You picture tiny organisms thriving in environments that appear harsh or silent, finding balance in chemical reactions that unfold in patient cycles. You sense how life adapts, reshaping itself like soft clay pressed by the conditions around it. You envision microbes living beneath ice shells, where oceans hide in darkness, warmed by the slow inner heartbeat of a planet. You breathe gently as you imagine organisms that use minerals instead of sunlight, quietly weaving energy from a meeting of rock and water. These scenes remind you that life is resilient, bending and stretching to occupy whatever space offers even the smallest opportunity. In this recognition, you feel a soothing respect for how life endures with grace, and you sense new meanings rising gently within your quiet awareness. Asterisk, you allow your thoughts to wander toward worlds still forming. Young planets where chemistry has only begun its long conversation with time. You picture volcanic plains cooling under dim starlight, releasing gases that swirl into the beginnings of an atmosphere. You imagine early oceans settling into place, carrying dissolved minerals like tiny seeds of possibility. You breathe slowly, letting these images feel as soft and patient as the processes they represent. You sense that life may begin not with sudden spark, but with gradual alignment. Small steps accumulating until a new pattern can sustain itself. You picture simple molecules linking into chains, chains folding into shapes, shapes learning to persist just a little longer than chance alone would allow. You rest in this awareness, understanding that life's earliest whispers may resemble a gentle murmur rather than a bold declaration, and you hold this quiet imagining with steady and open curiosity. Asterisk as you continue drifting. You picture worlds where life relies not on warmth, but on cold stability, where molecules move slowly yet steadily enough to form lasting patterns. You imagine frozen landscapes with pockets of liquid beneath the ice, places where reactions occur at a patient pace that feels almost like a breath held for centuries. You breathe gently as you think of organisms that might endure long winters, measured in planetary cycles, waking only when conditions tilt into narrow windows of possibility. You sense how life adapts its rhythm to whatever environment it inhabits, never rushing but always moving toward continuity. In this quiet reflection, you realize how life is not defined by speed, but by persistence, by the steady repetition of processes that resist stillness. You rest in this understanding, feeling the calm reassurance of such enduring patterns, and you carry this gentle thought into the deepening quiet. Asterisk, you now imagine worlds where life might arise from entirely unfamiliar chemistries, systems that follow rules you have never encountered. You picture atmospheres rich in gases that seem hostile by Earth's standards, yet may offer nourishment to forms built for those conditions. You breathe softly as you imagine organisms exchanging energy through reactions that feel strange, but harmonious in their context. You sense how life always seeks balance, finding a way to move between order and possibility. You picture creatures that might glide on dense air or float in thick, cloud-like layers, or anchor themselves to surfaces shaped by alien winds. You let these images settle gently, understanding that unfamiliar does not mean impossible. In this spacious awareness, you appreciate that life is a bridge between environment and potential, linking matter with meaning in ways you can sense but not fully grasp. As you rest in this widening sense tonight, as you breathe deeper, you imagine that life could even exist without relying on the chemistry you know, forming based on principles that feel more like gentle echoes of physics than biology. You picture systems organized around magnetic fields, or patterns shaped by electrical currents flowing through exotic materials. You let yourself drift into this speculative space not to escape reality, but to appreciate the vastness of what might be possible. You sense that life, in its essence, is the ability to maintain structure, to respond, to continue, and that these traits could arise in countless ways. You imagine forms that do not move yet still change, forms that do not grow yet still adapt, forms that do not breathe yet still exchange energy. In this reflection, you find comfort in the thought that life is not confined to the familiar, and you hold this mystery gently within your awareness. You now rest in a wide understanding that life can express itself in countless ways, each shaped by the environment that cradles it. You picture worlds where gentle chemical steps create long chains of possibility, and others where strange reactions craft quiet but persistent systems. You breathe softly, imagining diverse forms of aliveness, all moving at their own pace beneath distant skies. You sense that the universe does not insist on one pattern, but welcomes many, allowing life to arise wherever conditions offer even a slight opening. You let this awareness settle into you like a calm tide, smoothing the boundaries of what you thought possible. In this peaceful moment, you realize that the search for life is also a search for understanding your place in the cosmos, a recognition that you share existence with possibilities not yet known, and you drift forward wondering how the next discovery might reshape. You begin by letting your mind expand beyond the familiar planets, allowing your imagination to drift into categories of worlds that exist far beyond the comforting orbits of the solar system. You picture planets with masses heavier than Earth yet lighter than the gas giants, holding seas of possibilities between solidity and fluff. You breathe gently as you imagine landscapes compressed under stronger gravity, mountains that rise and fall in slow motion, atmospheres thick with subtle hues. You sense the quiet artistry of mass and motion shaping these worlds, teaching your mind that even the heaviest planets can carry a soft beauty. In this drifting awareness, you realize that super-Earths exist not as single points on a map, but as invitations to imagine, as if the universe is giving you room to wander in gentle thought without expectation. Your awareness widens as you consider mini-Neptunes, those planets that float in the space between gas and solid, holding thick envelopes of hydrogen and helium that shimmer in muted light. You picture clouds moving slowly in strange skies, forming patterns you have never named, flowing like ink on water, You imagine the weight of the atmosphere pressing gently on deep oceans or floating layers of liquid, each with its own temperature, pressure, and quiet rhythm. You breathe softly, feeling how density and volume combine to create experiences no human eye has ever witnessed. In these gentle reflections, you sense that variety is the rule, not the exception, and that the universe allows every planetary form to explore its own kind of equilibrium. Even when it defies the simple categories, you let yourself drift further into places with no names, worlds only described by the effects of physics and the flow of time. You imagine a planet orbiting a dim star, its surface alternately warmed and cooled, its days stretching into rhythms that feel eternal. You picture ridges formed from slowly shifting tectonics, valleys filled with chemicals that glimmer faintly in the alien light. You breathe, letting the concept of unnamed worlds settle softly, understanding that a name is unnecessary when the mind is allowed to wander freely across landscape and possibility. These places exist as whispers in the vast library of the cosmos, each one holding its own stories without ever needing to be labeled. And in this quiet, you feel a deep sense of calm curiosity, as if the universe itself is inviting you to imagine more. Your mind drifts now to the subtle interplay of distance and temperature, shaping worlds in ways both familiar and strange. You imagine a planet slightly farther from its sun than Earth, where sunlight falls thinner, softer, filtering through a gentle atmosphere to warm rocks and waters just enough. You picture another planet closer to a brilliant star, oceans boiled down to pools of liquid minerals, clouds heavy with vapor. You breathe slowly, letting the extremes exist side by side in your awareness, noticing how warmth and distance sculpt possibilities, giving each world its own tender rhythm. You sense that no single formula dictates what a planet must be, and that gentle variations in orbit and light are capable of creating landscapes as diverse as your own thoughts and dreams. You drift into imagining worlds of mass beyond what you can easily picture. Planets so heavy that gravity pulls with a constant, steady embrace. You feel what it might be like to walk there in your mind, each step slower, each movement deliberate, as if the world itself asks patience. Mountains would fold inward under their own weight, oceans would cling more tightly to the land, and even air would feel dense, carrying sound and warmth in a languid motion. Yet, even here, you sense a strange serenity, a soft patience built into every aspect of the planet. You breathe into this thought, feeling how physics, though firm and unyielding, can produce environments that are gentle to imagine. Spaces where everything moves according to rules that invite reflection rather than urgency. Your thoughts wander next to planets that are smaller, lighter, with thin atmospheres that allow wind and light to sweep unimpeded across wide surfaces. You imagine mini-Neptunes with clouds of gas that shimmer in unearthly shades, their layers moving in quiet, patient currents. You picture the surface beneath the clouds if there is one shaped by temperature extremes, or exotic ices, reflecting sunlight in ways that feel entirely new. You breathe slowly, letting the idea of thin air and delicate atmospheric motion settle softly in your awareness. You sense how every difference in mass, composition, and distance from a star results in a new dance of elements. A quiet choreography of existence that invites your mind to rest in wonder rather than explanation. You drift deeper into worlds you cannot name. And that is precisely the point. The absence of labels allows your imagination to roam freely. You picture chemical oceans that ripple in currents of unfamiliar compounds. Clouds that drift in patterns dictated by gases alien to your understanding. Surfaces shaped by minerals that glow faintly under distant suns. You feel the rhythms of these worlds in your own breathing. Each inhalation sensing with imagined tides, each exhalation following the sweep of alien winds. You sense how variety itself can feel like a lullaby. The gentle lesson that existence is not a single form, but a vast collection of possibilities, all resting quietly in the expansive cradle of space. You now allow your awareness to float toward the edges of perception, considering that each of these worlds carries with it possibilities for life, subtle and patient. You imagine gentle metabolisms unfolding slowly in hidden oceans, chemical rhythms that rise and fall like the tide, systems that persist without noise or hurry. You breathe deeply, sensing the quiet potential embedded in the architecture of a planet gravity, temperature, atmosphere, and chemistry coming together in a soft chorus. Even if no living thing exists there, the world itself feels alive in its rhythms, its constant unfolding, its capacity to host patterns that endure. You rest in this understanding, feeling a deep sense of reverence for all that can exist quietly without recognition or name. Finally, you drift toward the idea that variety, in its calm abundance, is one of the universe's most gentle lessons. You imagine planets beyond count, each carrying its own rhythms, temperatures, and forms. Some massive, some delicate, some glowing under dim suns, some hidden beneath thick clouds. You breathe, letting this multiplicity settle like a quiet tide within your mind. You sense that the universe does not demand names or recognition, only existence, and that this abundance invites your curiosity to linger without pressure. And as this gentle awareness spreads through your thoughts, you feel the soft question rising. What stories might these unnamed worlds tell? And how might their quiet existence reshape the way you imagine what it means to be alive elsewhere in the cosmos?